everyone, welcome to Midway Gaming. Got it right. Don't know why my brain told myself I'm gonna say the name wrong. But anyways, hello, welcome to Midway Gaming. I'm Nico, and this comes, of course, Justin. And let me just start off by saying, I'm sorry. I feel like one of those dumb mobile adverts we see all the time where they just be like, I'm sorry, here's 100 free pulls. But legit for those who
Get
are
100
sorry, I
free
didn't do
draws.
100 free draws. AFK arena. No, I'm kidding. No. Seriously though, I'm sorry that I literally didn't do, or we didn't do anything last week. Was literally not gonna lie, it was just me procrastinating and just never getting around to it. I told myself I would every day, and then I just literally didn't. We had a show planned to do, and then we just didn't get around to do it. Possibly by the time this goes up, we'll be into, depending on how you look at it, 2 weeks without a show. YouTube is gonna really hammer us for this one. Good lord. Broken the record. And again, that's just me procrastinating and having poor managerial habits. So that's on me. So sorry to everyone who likes our videos. Trust me, I like doing them. So it makes my life sad. I literally told myself when we started this show, I will do one every week. And then I broke that, and then I'm on the verge of not doing it for every 2 weeks, so sorry. But yeah, no. Going back to the actual topic for this video, I was actually going to do this last week, like I said. And this is actually, we're going to talk about the whole Titan debacle in Destiny right now. Yeah, I know, we're going back to the old Destiny well. Bungie just makes endless chugging content for us to make, so
And
who are we to deny the content?
to be fair, on this one, we kind of let it sit down and cook for a little bit. We let the
For
discussion
a little
cook a
bit.
little, and we both have let it simmer in our minds for a little bit. So
True.
we've thought about it for a little, so it's cooked a little.
True that. Not gonna lie though, this video was actually inspired by a video that TDT did about a week or two ago at this point. Probably 2 at this point. Going over the whole Titan debacle from his perspective. Now he himself, funny enough, if memory serves, is also a is also a pureblood warlock like myself, but he himself also does have all the classes, like a lot of players. I just don't because I'm weird. I'm waiting for Destiny 3, and then I'm gonna get the final trophy, and then but anyways, moving on. So the current problem right now is that with Prismatic, Titans have once again been reminded almost by force that they're in a really dull position right now. And this was also spurred by something of a poll that Astacross, of all people, did of the people who completed World's First of Salvation's Edge, the titular raid to end all raids of the 10-year saga. And he actually took a poll, basically, and he basically looked at the people who completed the world's first raid. Not just the big teams, but, you know, kind of all the teams. And he basically said, okay, all the teams that actually finished the world's first raid, like, within the time limit given, of the people who actually have said they beat, or who beat it almost on day 1 or day 2, depending on how you look at it, what's the breakdown of the classes, you know? How many Titans, how many Warlocks, how many Titans? Basically, it worked out something like this. There was like several hundred hunters that did it, that worked out on the pie graph of to like 75 or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers. It's been a bit since I looked, but the most important part is the final part. We'll get to that. It was about 25, 75 something warlocks, taking up about 35 something percent of the pie, 25, 35%, something like that. And then what really hurt Astacross himself was the point of this graph, because he's a Titan himself, is he said congratulations to the whole 2 or 3 Titans that actually managed to beat World's First, because
No, I think it was an entire Titan team. I can't remember what it was, but the first world's first team for this expansion, I think, was an entire Titan-only team.
I don't think so.
I can't remember, but I have a feeling because I remember it was something Titan related. I can't remember the full context.
Well, anyways, according to the graph, because I believe this one in this case, because I don't think so, but we'll get back to that. There was about 2 or 3 Titans entirely in the world's first raids for the competition that actually managed to beat the Salvation's Edge in the first 24, 48-hour window at all.
They're regrouping for another strike.
And so, you know, even if it is for Titans, whatever, the point is that the entire pie, this takes up only 1% of the other two classes, with Hunters dwarfing everyone else with several hundred of them, Titan or Warlocks having only a few dozen of them, like I said, maybe what, 75 or something like that, 45, something like that. And then Titans, 1%, just 3 or 4 people. That's it.
Yep.
Maybe less. I don't remember the exact number, like I said. And so, yeah, this has kind of prompted a discussion to the whole Titan fiasco that has basically been something that the Titans themselves have kind of been aware of for a long time now. I myself actually jokingly commented on it back when the whole bubble nerf came along. I actually myself joked on a video. I think it was asked across the video as well, funny enough, going over it. And basically I said, congratulations, Titans. You now feel even more pigeonholed in your whole kind of thing because of how the bubble nerf worked out. And you're even more situational based. Turns out I was more right in the money than even I thought at the time. Because, yeah, the whole problem with Titans right now, and has always kind of been a thing, and has been exasperated over the years, is that Titans are, in TDT's own words, really overpowered or really underpowered, and there really is no middle ground for them. And currently that has to do with the fact that Titans are basically the punchy punch guys of the Destiny world. And not gonna lie, as a D1 beta vet, I have no idea where that came from. I mean, yeah, they punch people a lot. I do not know why that became the Titans' whole shtick, because I thought they were more than their fist. But hey, I guess the Crayon Eaters really took the whole violence meets violence thing to heart. So yeah, it kind of basically goes off like this. To make a long story short, basically TTT's video, which again, link down in the comments, I really recommend you going to it, because I'm going to start by saying I'm not going to go into the full depth of this as probably he does. In fact, I'd wager I won't. I'm going to be going over, because this is going to be a video based on our own commentary on the issue,
yeah,
as well as our own kind of place on it.
Perspective and like symptoms of some of the things and what we see out of it.
Yeah. We're not going to go too deep into the whole issue itself. We'll obviously talk about it for the sake of explaining, for clarity, for those who don't know. But if you want a real good breakdown of it, and you want a real good, like, expose on the whole problem and where it starts and where it's going and yada yada, look at TDT. I honestly confess he does a really great video on it, despite, like I said, being a Blood Warlock. He himself has a Titan, and he actually thinks really well on this. Titan is also... Justin also has a Titan, so he'll kind of be able to speak on this more than I will, because like I said, I just play Warlock only. I literally don't have the other classes. So, but again, we'll get to that. My point is that the current problem with Titan is that they're really falling into one of two lanes here. They're either really leaning into their strengths, which is the punching, or they're really weak. And the problem kind of brought in here by TDT, and me by extension, because I do agree, and I think a lot of Titans now are agreeing with this, is that the problem with Titans is that even though they have, like, their whole shtick going, with the current meta, you could say, of Destiny between the other two classes, specifically with Hunters kind of dwarfing everyone else at the player base. And if you'll pardon me for just a second, I've honestly thought that Warlocks have had this similar issue for a long time now, but it seems not as bad as the Titans by any extension of the, not any stretch of the imagination, is that basically the other classes can do everything the Titan can nowadays, just as good, if not better, which has kind of left the Titan increasingly more obsolete compared to the other two classes. And so, yeah, there's kind of an issue right now of, like, why would you play Titan when you could, in TDT's own words, the best way to play Titan, as it seems currently, is literally to not play Titan, or in other words, to play another class. So that kind of brings us to where we are now. What the heck comes of this? Well, if you'll pardon me for a second, I could literally sit here on my soapbox and say, well, this is a good example of the fact that this is another good feather in the cap towards the legendary Omni class that is supposed to be coming in D3, if the leaks are to be believed, where there will be no Titans, Warlocks, or Hunters anymore. There will just be the elements, and You just pick. But here's the thing, mate. Whether that is true or me just huffing copious amounts of copium, that doesn't change the fact that that is a solution to a problem that is, in short, a D3 fix. Not sure if you haven't noticed yet, but we're not in D3 yet.
Yeah.
So, until such time as we do, and we get the fabled Omni class, we're kind of left with the Titans sitting in the corner going, why? So, let's talk about it. And to my brothers in fists, I feel pity for you. Trust me, I'm a warlock. I kind of get the whole obsolescence thing. I've been rambling about it for hunters, or I've been railing against the hunters for our class for a long time now, but it seems you have it way worse. My condolences. So, let's get into it then. Starting from the actual Titan user, I think is the best way to go about this. Granted, Justin is not a Titan main; he is a hunter main.
No.
Which
I treat
kind of is the very root of the problem here. But
no, I treat Titan the same way that I treat Soldier and Demo and TF2. They are two classes that I do enjoy to play, just not very often. And yeah, the only difference, however, though, is in Destiny, you kind of have to put a fair amount of time investment in order to go and get the full power out of your class. So there was that.
So from your perspective as a Titan user, I think is the best way to go about it. What do you see the Titan's current position as, from your perspective?
Overall, although there's some effective methods about doing things, to me feels very weak. Just overall feels inefficient when it comes to a lot of specific things the other classes are able to do. So, for one, when I was going and playing around with Titan, a lot of the time I would only really stay on my Void build and try to very heavily lean into the aspect of going and utilizing Overshield and utilizing that Overshield to go and have higher uptime for my miniguns. And I would basically lean into being able to use my melee and use my grenade in order to constantly maintain some semblance of overshield through my melee, and so on and so forth. But no matter what, it always felt like I was going and not only having a very large uphill battle just to go and utilize my abilities very similar to that of my hunter, but it just felt meaningless to go and even try to go and have this build when instead I could just go and just, play my hunter. Like, instead of running around going and constantly having an overshield up by going and utilizing my sentinel shield by throwing my melee, taking out a bunch of enemies, getting my grenade back, and kind of uphill battle to maintain said overshield, I could just go play my hunter, play solar, throw a couple knives around, and get radiant all the time. So, I don't know. It like I said, it feels like a very strong uphill battle, and you, like it was said in Astrocross video, you really do have to lean into melee heavy, and if you are not melee heavy, then you're kind of
EDTs, I think, in this case.
Oh yeah. It's still like you have to lean into the melee builds. If you do not lean into melee, then you are kind of pooched. Unlike both Warlock and especially Hunter, you can lean into whatever you want. When it comes to Hunter, Solar Hunter, you have the ability to get Radiant, which is universally useful in all fields. It doesn't matter what range you are, it doesn't matter how close, how far you are, you can always be utilizing your Radiant. Unlike a Titan who you kind of being forced to, in some way, be close enough to the enemy where they can do critical damage to you. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on my experience with it. Like, it's a little rewarding, but again, a very, very hard uphill battle.
comparatively to do.
Yes.
And again, that kind of goes back to it where it's like everything that the like and again, TDT himself kind of touched on this as well with the class items, right? And this is kind of what brought the whole issue kind of into the forefront alongside Prismatic's kind of general what's the word I'm looking for here? Indecisiveness, let's say. But we'll get to that. Basically, he pointed out the class item list because when the exotic class items came out, we're not touching the whole dual destiny issue. That's a whole other video. Yes, for the records who are wondering, I was pissed about it too. Thankfully, I have Justin and we got it done together. But had I not, I would be sitting on the internet railing against it for all hell. But again, other video. So when exotic class items came out, they released the full list of exotic perks you can get on each of their respective class items, right? It makes sense. You get the whole perk combination tree. And so he basically pulled these trees for the 3 items, and he basically looked at all of them and he said, okay, from what the meta tells us of what is good in PvP or PvE, let's look at these items. Most of the 2 classes, that being Hunter and Warlock, have stuff that is within their own purview, and even just in general, stuff that is good in the PvP or PvE sect and is considered generally meta, and it's generally also belonging to them. But, to make a long story short, when you look at the Titan item, 'tis not the case. Most of the good stuff that is for anything really, again PvE or PvP focused, has nothing to do with the Titans at all. And so this goes back to what he says, and he says a lot throughout the video, and this is kind of the great problem and enigma Titans are facing right now due to their current identity crisis that he points out, is that the best way to play the class of Titan is to not play the class of Titan and play someone else, because most of the good stuff is not for Titans. This kind of even goes into the kind of supers. And again, in his video, he breaks it down far more in detail than me. I'm just going to do it for the sake of brevity to make it much quicker. Basically, he goes through all of them and he basically says, okay, yes, and I will agree very much here. I have railed against this for years on another side note. Titans have massive amounts of damage. But in fairness, outside of their punching, that's really the only thing they got going for them, it seems. And it's been shown that damage is really the only thing they got going for them, because while hunters can do 400,000, 500,000 damage, roughly thereabouts. Well, 300,000, 400,000 damage, thereabouts, depending. And Titans can do like 500,000 easy with their stuff. Warlocks, I mean, we have a super Chaos Reach that you cannot tell me was not based solely for PvP, and thus now is terrible in PvE, because while our abilities, our supers can generally go around 125,000 thereabouts without bonus supers or without bonus exotics and builds and yada yada yada. Chaos Reach, you know, with its minimum damages, about 97,000.
Nope.
Not even 100,000.
I can't remember when it was, but not too long ago, but long enough ago. Chaos Reach was actually pretty good. Now, no.
That's
No.
the thing. It doesn't have the damage to do DPS. Yeah, it's great in PvP, because that's, again, as I said, what it was built for. Because, let's be honest, there's, like, what, only 200,000, 500,000? I don't know what the actual health bar is for a Guardian, roughly thereabouts. But it's nowhere near 97,000. So in PvP, it's good. But in PvE, there's a lot of bosses, just even in probably strikes, that could just sit there and be like, they feel nothing. So, But outside, like I said, going back to the Titans, outside of the damage they've got going for them, everyone else can kind of do their things, but better. Overshield? I mean, Hunters could probably do that, or hell, even Titans.
Well, I mean,
Procking Devour? Well, that's always been the one.
Besides just finishers, there are a multitude of ways of going and getting Overshield.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I'm not going to break down all the methods because TTT goes through all of them himself, so for the sake of brevity, I won't. But the whole root of the conundrum here is that Titans kind of have this issue where they're basically being rendered obsolete in-game. And the point of this video then is, why the heck am I saying this? Well, I think it deserves to be echoed because honestly, it is something that should be addressed. How do you address it? Well, like I said, I could sit back on my soapbox and go, just make the Omni class, but that's a Destiny 3 problem. So that's what do we do in the interim? Well, honestly, me and Justin were kind of brainstorming before the show, and I think the best way to do it, though the hard way, would probably be to take the Titan away from this punch-centric playstyle, right? In fact, weirdly enough, speaking as a D1 veteran, Titans have the same problem right now that, I won't lie, I literally had in my mind thinking to myself when I was first picking my classes back in the D1 beta, where I sat there and I go, okay, the Warlocks are the healer mage, okay, Titans are the offensive defense, okay, tank and offense rolled into one, tank berserker thing, okay. What do the hunters do? You're fast and you're quick. Okay. Speaking from an RPG style, what does that give you? Not much. But now, in modern Destiny, the hunters have become the major DPS dealers to some degree, versus the Titans, who have been relegated to kind of the tank role, but mostly just the punch berserker role, which, again, weirdly enough, plays out really well in Crucible. Same thing for same thing for hunters. Not so well for warlocks, but I digress. Personal gripes aside, it's played out really well for Titans and Hunters in Crucible because, like I said, up close and personal is kind of how all of Crucible is designed, and Hunters just really, as much as I loathe to say it, shine just in every given scenario. It's one of the reasons they're the most popular class. Like, my biases as a Warlock aside, I'm not gonna lie, I see why they're the most popular class because, again, they can kind of do everything the other classes can, but better, and even if they can't, it doesn't really matter that much anyway. I mean, there's no really use in being the best healer if everything's dead to kill you anyway, so what's the point?
Yep.
So, but when it comes to Titans in the PvE sect, which, again, this is a mainly PvE-focused game, let's be frank, yeah, damage and punching's really the only thing that got going for them, and so we're in this weird position where Titans are kind of either really strong or really powerful, and they're in this looping cycle of they're really powerful, so Bungie nerfs the feck out of them. Oh, they're too weak now. Buff, 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 buff. Oh, too strong now. Back down we go. Buff, buff. Oh, too strong. Back down we go. And it's just circle over and over and over again. And hell, this class identity extends to the very elements themselves. Strand, as TDT himself points out in his video, is, I believe it was Strand anyway, it might have been Stacy. I think it was Strand though. Was kind of, it's a decent subclass. It's one of their decent subclasses, comparatively, due to the other subclasses. But here's the thing, right? That was kind of the result of Bungie realizing the problems of Titan and trying to right themselves out of the problem, not very effectively. And speaking of Strand, let's look at Banner of War. You know, the fun thing all the Titans love to spam the shite out of when it first came out. Well, here's the funny thing about Banner of War, right? It's a Strand aspect, yeah? But, small problem there, yeah? Unlike all the other aspects for literally every other class, including their own, despite being the strongest aspects the Titan have, just by and large, it really has absolutely zip to do with Strand itself. Like, there's no keywords playing into it for Strand at all. You can literally, and he himself points this out, take the Banner of War aspect, just give it a bit of a color makeover, put it on any of the other elements, and you wouldn't tell the difference.
And that's
because
the
there's
really weird thing about it, because this point does need to be made when it comes to Banner of War overall. A lot of the aspects for almost everyone are very restrictive in certain regards and kind of force you to go down certain routes. You're kind of supposed to go and, like, basically, you know, you have to play a role like this, and if you don't play the role like this, then you're not doing things right.
Right.
But it's the thing is like if you're not playing into the key terms of said role, you're not going to be as effective as you could be. So the question lies is what was Bungie thinking when they made it in the first place? Because they very well could have gone and made Banner of War fall into the whole key terms, go and still play the roles that it's supposed to play. But
And
they
that's kind of...
didn't.
Mm. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing here. And again, as much as I hate to say it, I'm saying this a lot in this video, but it's true. TDT himself again touches on this fact, and I very much agree with the reason of, and that is simply this. Bungie themselves doesn't know what to do with Titans. Like, I've even read a few comments on this matter, and some people even say that, like, Bungie themselves does not play their game enough to, or at least this class enough, to know its problems inside and out. And I'm not going to be cynical here, because I easily could be. But it's just the fact that it's like, I mean, on an off note, Bungie back in the day confessed to being a bunch of hardcore Warlock mains. Now, I don't suppose that's true so much these days as probably Hunter mains, let's be frank, because of all the good love the Hunters get. But the moral of the story is that there's never really been many Titan mains among the Destiny development teams. And that's a problem to a degree because that means a good chunk of the development team has no idea the real issues surrounding the Titans. And that's where we kind of come into the whole point of like, why does Bungie not give the best aspect of them keywords? Well, again, I hate to say it again, but TDT himself kind of pointed out that Bungie kind of themselves has relegated the Titans to the punching guy.
Yeah.
And that's bad because it really is, in my own personal opinion, too constrictive,
It's
too
very
simplistic.
limiting.
Yeah, it's very limiting. You're either punching the flip out of other things, or you're not playing your class right. That's
And
kind of the problem.
in the video itself, you are extraordinarily limited when it comes to your supers. Like if there's a boss that has any level of range on you, well, good luck. You're not getting anywhere.
That's a good point, actually. Thank you. That's another good point he points out where, and again, this is another reason why the whole recent expansion kind of brought this issue to the forefront, is because for those who haven't played Salvation's Edge or haven't seen the world's first raid at the very least, like I have, or just the raid in general, the Witness is the first, well, probably one of, maybe there's been others in the past, but he is the most prolific in recent memory, non-meleeable boss. He is basically an environment boss to some degree. You cannot melee that.
Nope.
Here's the problem. Most of the Titans' shtick, hell, even with just the supers, rely on melee. Strand is actually, going back to why it's probably one of the best subclasses for Titans, is the first one that tried to make melee a ranged option. Because every other thing has you either smacking them with things in melee general vicinity, or throwing yourself like a javelin into them for melee stuff. But the problem is you can't do any of that to the Witness because the Witness literally just kind of hovers around you. And so if you can't get up and punch the guy, well, just like Justin said, you can't really do anything.
And I mean, that's the thing. Although Strand does provide Titan users with some ranged based options and some options that allow you to better, like, stun and slow down enemies, allowing you to get into range, it's not that effective. And let's be frank, the Strand Super for Titan is basically just a 2.0 version of Stasis. Like, the two are virtually one and the same, only minor differences between the two and how they specifically operate in slowing down the enemies. Like, no matter what, they both do functionally the same thing, which is slow down the enemy and allow you to get into range to punch them.
Yeah, and I mean, hell, that's kind of the like, even from a mechanic standpoint, that's literally what people said about the Stasis Super, when compared to Arc when that came out. It's literally just a cool version of the Arc Super. So again, the like Bungie has been constantly pushing the Titans toward the punchy punch class, but the problem therein lies is that it's not, in my opinion, a broad enough basically concept to really work, right? The healer mage mixed with the summoners. Well, again, I could sit on my soapbox again and rail on about the warlock's problems, basically saying that while those are cool gimmicks outside of maybe the healing, and they may or may not be that effective. But again, that's not why I'm here, because again, this kind of goes back to the Titans problems where they have it way worse, because at least the Warlocks have options. They might not all be great options. We've got options. And hell, even compared to the Titans, we can do some of the shit they can, but way better.
Yep.
Lord knows the Hunters can.
Yep.
And so it's kind of left the Titans in this place of being power crept out of the game, which, not gonna lie, on a retrospect level, I never saw that coming, especially considering how often I rail against them in the PvP sector, but as I've already touched on, PvP, just due to their melee-centric nature, might be the only game mode in this game where they
And
actually do shine.
let's just say it for what it is. There's a big difference when it comes to the PvP environment and the PvE environment. The PvE environment is naturally forced around mid to long range engagements, with close range engagements either avoided or only utilized when you know you are going to eliminate your target. Versus PvP, which is literally built around close range engagements and rare mid range engagements. There are some
Right.
what you would consider long range engagements, but to me, I would kind of consider those a mixture between mid and long. So it's like, no matter what, Titan is literally built around the PvP maps, basically. So
Yeah, that's the weird part about everything, right? I literally had, funny enough, I was actually playing Banner this weekend, and I was literally saying to myself in the head that I want to make this video one day and basically rail on this point where I really want to, either in Destiny 2 or at the very least Destiny 3, whenever that comes in, hopefully sooner than later. But again, whole other video. I want bigger maps. Like, much as I rail against Take-Two and EA and Activision, but you know the COD maps? You know the Battlefield maps? You know those big arse maps? I want them maps, because here's the thing, right? I want to, and this is literally the thought that literally railed in my head as I was literally fighting in the most recent banner this weekend, or this week, is that I'm fighting in these maps and I'm playing, for example, Anomaly, and I swear to bloody heck, I feel like I'm fighting in a broom closet, because I'm having to feel with like, what, 3 or 4 other dudes, and we're all literally packed into a room no bigger than a hotel room, all just sitting there with guns running at each other. Like in all honesty, people rail on shotgun aping in the Crucible all the time, but if I'm being totally honest, anger aside, I'm not really surprised, nor can I blame them, because if I really look at how the maps of Destiny 2's and in some ways Destiny 1's arenas are designed, the sad truth of the matter is, CQC has always been the name of the game. Like, these are not long-range maps. These are maps where you're going to get up in the face of the opponent, so yeah, bringing a shotgun's a pretty good idea, honestly.
Yep. I mean, you can
And
look at it at every single Destiny 2 map. There are very few locations that are long-based engagement areas, and the ones that are surrounded by close-quartered areas.
yeah, it's a more modern trend we see in the more modern maps, but again, that's a really more modern take. Most of the maps we have are very CQC focused.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for a class that's whole role, by Bungie's own admission, is to be the punching guy, yeah, they're gonna do well in a CQC map because, you know, punching's kinda CQC. So, yeah, they're great in Crucible. As are the Hunters. Again, not so much the Warlocks, but I digress. But in every other aspect of the game, especially like I said in the most modern raid, where you can't even hit the final raid boss with your stuff unless, I don't know, you want to thunder crash into the chest of the witness, though that's a guaranteed self-destructive measure. Yeah, you really just kind of have to sit there and throw weaponry at it. You can't throw supers at it. You can't arc staff it. You can't golden gun it. You can't nova bomb it because, well, Titans can't do none of that. So, what do? Thunder Crash? Well, that'd kill them for sure. Strand? That might not hit them. And even if it does, it might not do much. Stasis? That mostly relies on CQC, and as we discovered, I've discussed, I mean, you can't really do that to the witness.
Yeah,
So,
even so, stasis relies more on the shards that you create than anything. So
yeah, and you can't reach the witness with those things because you're on a platform around it. So, solar? I mean, you can throw hammers at it, but let's be honest,
like,
there are
that's
better
thing.
ways.
Like, overall, the only two real options, well, three, is either maybe prismatic, solar, maybe with the hammers, and void, either bubble or the new super with the axes.
Yeah,
Like that's the only three options you really have, and that's
yeah,
not great.
yeah. You either play support with the bubble, which, let's be honest, if I'm being totally blunt here, Bungie picked the worst time, as per the usual, to do this kind of defense-focused playstyle, because when you look at the witness, a bubble you can't shoot through that's made for defense is kind of the last thing you want, because you want to be able to move around in that arena to basically play the two-step
And
against
that's
the witness's
the
death
thing.
beams.
Like those, yeah, like that's the thing. The attacks the witness gives you while you are on that pedestal are attacks that you cannot dodge and defend yourself against. If you are within them, you will die. So
Yeah,
bubble
maybe
and
in the more
well
recent one you
isn't
did, but
so
yeah.
useful. Maybe maybe you can get use out of them for regeneration, but even then, it is not that useful.
Yeah, you'd be better off going with a well at the very least, because then you can at least move around, keep the radiance for a little bit so you can kind of come in and out of the well, and have an overall damage buff. The bubble, however, you physically can't shoot through, and so you really are limiting not only your space, which is already pretty limited, but you're only really giving yourself a defense buff these days unless you're rumbling the Helm of Saint 14, which gives you the Weapons of Light buff. And so it's all in all, by and large, at least in this encounter, the final boss encounter, kind of important. Generally, at least in my opinion, pretty useless. But hey, I'm a warlock. What do I know? So again, it's this kind of position where the Titans are kind of sitting there going, "What the heck has become of us?" And yeah, in all honesty, I can agree. So you're probably sitting there going, "Oh, you're the warlock. You're the smart one. What do you suggest?" And I won't lie, buddy. I genuinely don't know.
See,
Like I said, I'm the Titan. I'm not the Titan main.
that's the thing. Bungie no matter what avenue, no matter what way you look at it, if you are for or against changes to Titan, no matter what avenue you look at it, Bungie have basically made it so that they are holding a two-sided sword. No matter what, this is a double edge. Either they buff the Titan and make it so that they're on par with the rest of the classes, thus throwing off power balancing and
Again.
risking Titans being really strong, or at the very least, and the more optimal solution, around the same level as everybody else with certain capabilities, or they outright change the class dynamic for Titan in general and make it so that, like, instead of being entirely close quartered focus, you have more ranged based options.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'd go with, honestly, because things cannot stay as they are, one
And
way or the
you know
other.
what? It is for what it is right now. Now is kind of the best time to argue for that strand-based minigun. I'm just saying.
We want the Green Lantern minigun.
Now is the best time to argue for it.
Dude, I'm still kind of ticked off that we didn't get like Green Lantern-ish powers. Where we just the Titans go super. They just summon a Strand minigun.
Yeah, well, here we are.
Dude, DC might get angry.
They might.
Maybe that's why. I
They
mean, then
know what's
again,
coming.
if I'm being totally honest, there's a lot of people that rail against Green Lantern. I personally like him as a hero, but hey, what do
Well,
I know? Like
to
I
be
said,
fair,
I'm the Warlock.
that movie was a movie that which the very
Well,
main
I'm not talking.
character wasn't too much of a fan of, but you know.
Yeah, well, in fairness, I'm not talking about too much about the movie. I've always kind of been a fan of the Lantern before the movie.
Hmm.
The movie itself is it's I leave it
Well,
up to Ryan's
needless to
discretion.
say. Needless to say.
But yeah, needless to say, that's kind of the position we're in right now. So, eesh. Again, it's worth mentioning. It's worth reiterating. That's why we kind of did this video. I wanted to kind of add my voice in there for what little good it'll do. I won't delude myself into thinking I have any real say at the moment in the Destiny community. But hey, it's deserving to be echoed because this is something that should be played with here, or that should be addressed here. Because,
Hmm.
again, I don't play Titan. I've admitted that numerous times throughout this video and other videos. But as a person who, among the Warlock community, has always feel that we've had similar issues, albeit it seems not as bad,
Not to the same
uh, I
degree.
s- not to the same degree, yeah, I can certainly feel their pain. So in it is at least fitting that I add my voice to the whole fix the Titan shtick. Because yeah, being the punch guy, not really working out these days.
Well, that's the big thing about it overall, no matter what, is what's the point in having multiple different classes who all apparently do different things when in reality they're clearly not? Like, clearly, those things are along the lines of, well, yeah, I can go and clean out house. Yeah, I can survive and clean out house. I can clean out a closed house. Hmm?
And that's the thing. Like I said, I'll end it here by saying I could sit on my soapbox and saying that these recent developments in years where they've been slowly giving the other classes the other things, and again, as a result, and again, this is kind of the big shtick here, and again, as I've been saying a lot, TDT points this out. Back when D2 first started, this wasn't an issue because everyone had their niche. The Titans were the punch guys, and no one else could touch that. The Warlocks were the heal guys, and no one could touch that. The Hunters were whatever the heck the hunters do. Nobody can touch that. Uh, But now, because of this move towards this more unified nature, which, again, in lore, makes sense because there really was no difference, it has left the Titan class feeling more and more and more empty because, well, in the words of a certain villain, if everybody's special, then no one
If
is.
everyone's super, no one is.
No one is. So, it's this kind of thing of like, now the Titans have been faced with this identity crisis, and well, it's kind of really showing the constraints of their class. Again, being the punch guy's fine when you're the only punch guy in the room. But when everyone else can start being kind of the punch guy, well,
No, no. Like, it's cool to be a vacuum cleaner and be able to clean up a room really quickly. But when you have other vacuum cleaners that do it faster than you, well, you're kind of outclassed.
yeah. Being the punch guy doesn't really seem that much fun when it's not really that effective compared to everyone else.
Yep.
So, there we
Like,
are.
no matter what, like I said with my experience, it's got its aspects, but if it's compared to everything else, it's not that fun.
hmm And again, I could sit here and say, well, move to Omni, but again, that's a D3 fix.
And no matter what, it's something that's not going to come anytime soon. And whatever ideas that we can come up with now can potentially make things even better for when D3 does come.
Yeah, when D3 does come in
Like
something years.
when you do think about it though, like chances are D3 is probably going to have a whole lot of issues because of what DE2 has now. And if we can go and figure out ways to help balance the classes now, it might give Bungie a better idea and better means to go and balance things out overall for everyone when we're basically given free reign.
That's the thing, right? If we just live in a world where there is a character that can do everything, and you're only really limited by what element you're running, if you're running the base elements and what you're running on them, and if you're running prismatic or not, because let's be frank, they're not just going to get rid of prismatic because we're going to D3, but again, that's all balancing shtick for there. But again, that's all well and good because that'll get rid of the Titan problem by literally deleting the Titan, which is sad to say, but, well, Titans themselves will be the first to admit that, like I said, the best way to play Titan is to not play Titan. So, but until that time comes, we're kind of left to pick up the pieces. So we can at least fix this problem and make it more bearable for the Titan brothers until such a time does come. So, I
We'll
hope
see what Bungie does come and decide to do.
I hope Destiny's change for them. So, anyways, on a depressing note, we'll end it there, unless you have any final words.
Nope.
All right, then we'll cut it off here. Have a good week. Have a good one. Hopefully, we'll be back again. Oh, we will be back again next week. Good lord. This will probably come out by frickin' Sunday, so depending on who you ask, this will be next week's video. But I'll do another one anyway because I'm not doing that again. So. At least I'm not hoping to sleep and miss a video again. Again, not burnout, I'm just lazy. So,
there is a very clear difference.
There is a very clear difference. Have a good one, everyone, and have a good night. Bye-bye!